Wanted to welcome Drew to Living in 50 States. So this is a podcast about interviewing locals within their state to get the best insight, the best that your state has to offer. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Absolutely, excited to be here.
So if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a local real estate agent here, very plugged into the community, obviously. I actually also travel around the country and teach real estate investing classes, and absolutely love doing that. And it's funny, we're doing this podcast. That has allowed me to actually have a lot more pride in my area and where I'm from, I think, than beforehand. As I got to go out and experience different parts of the country, there is something special about here, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're the first episode. So excited to have this conversation and see where it goes.
Thank you. That makes sense. The more you travel, the more you really appreciate your hometown.
Appreciate what you have.
Puts things in perspective. So then how long have you been in the state?
So I grew up here, born and raised.
Nice.
Yep.
So you've seen the changes. Has it changed much over the years?
A little bit. We're changing a lot more now than we have over the last 30-ish years. So we're excited about what's coming, but for the most part, it's stayed the same,
Awesome.
which is kind of cool.
It's I have never been here before, but I've heard good things about how friendly it is, and it's interesting. I stopped at a couple places, and it just had a different energy. Like it seemed so calm.
Yep.
I was the only one walking in a hurry, rushing. Everyone else was taking their time and more laid back, more friendly. Different energy to it.
Derby week, it's not like that, but every other time of the year, it's normally very friendly, very nice, and
That's cool.
small town feel.
So then, what would you say if you had to explain the overall vibe? How would you explain this state?
Yeah, I think it's.
And I mean the city.
The city, yeah. I think it's. I can't remember exactly the phrasing, but somebody, and I'm going to misquote this, but the person who said, "We are the largest small town in America," and I think that really, really epitomizes what we are and who we are, because we have a big city feel. We have the opportunities that come with a big city, right? A lot of entrepreneurship opportunities here locally. They're really making a push for that. But you have that small town feel where everybody knows everybody. Good. Right? I think it's Cheers. You want to go to where everybody knows your name?
Yes.
That's definitely the thing here in Louisville. When you first meet someone, it's, hey, where'd you go to high school? Right? So there's this really cool small town feel, but then you have the opportunity that a big city has to offer, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great place.
It's a lot of fun.
Huh.
And then you mix in a little bourbon on top, and you really got yourself something special.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about that before I get into that stuff. Why is bourbon so well known here or representative?
Yeah, so it's the process of making it, actually. So limestone is incredibly important when you make bourbon, and Kentucky is very rich in limestone. So there's also potentially, I won't say negative effects of it, but effects you have to be careful of. So limestone also is very prevalent for radon gas. So the good is the bourbon, the bad is the radon gas. It doesn't sound as intense as maybe it's coming across, but limestone is very important in the bourbon process, which is why we make, I think it's like 98% of the world's bourbon.
Wow. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know limestone was important. I didn't know you made 98%. Yeah. Before I leave, I'm definitely trying some bourbon.
You got to do a distillery tour. That's where we learn all of this stuff, right? So growing up, like it's a rite of passage when you turn 21 to go do the bourbon trail or part of it and get your bourbon knowledge on.
The bourbon trail, is that actually like a bar hop, or is that?
It is you can't do it in, I don't even think you can do it in 48 hours anymore. But it's all the major distilleries across the state.
Oh, wow.
And you go to a distillery and you'll do a tasting, and then they'll stamp, there's like a passport book, they'll stamp your passport that you went to that distillery. I can't remember, it keeps increasing on how many are in there now. But in that passport book, they stamp you each one, and you don't complete the trail until you've been to every single one of them.
That's amazing.
So a lot of bachelor parties come in, and they'll stay for 4 or 5 days while they do it.
Wow.
So I think that brings like almost 1 million visitors a year just from the bourbon trail alone.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I'm definitely gonna make a mental note of that.
You're gonna have to. Yep.
I'm gonna fly my girlfriend in and do the trail
go.
for sure. What would you say the bigger picture, the state of Kentucky? What would you say Kentucky's known for overall?
Oh man, I mean, I do think the state as a whole is definitely known for bourbon. The Kentucky Derby, right? Everybody knows the fastest 2 minutes in sports. So bourbon and horses are definitely top, and then I would say right up there with it would be basketball. Those are kind of the three things that the state as a whole is known for, specifically the University of Kentucky. I might be biased, but the best college basketball program that's ever existed. Yep, we're number one in wins. So
Oh wow, that does mean a lot.
Yep, overall. So.
Huh. And then you told me about the baseball sluggers. You said.
Yep. So the Louisville Slugger Museum is or the museum is part of the Louisville Slugger entire company that makes the majority of the baseball bats for the Major League Baseball, all of Major League Baseball. So even going as far back as Babe Ruth, he used a Louisville Slugger when he was playing baseball. Derek Jeter, I think he had I saw a stat the other day. It was 12,940 plate appearances with a Louisville Slugger bat. So they have always been a huge player in the bat space of Major League Baseball. So that has been absolutely huge for the city as well.
It's a lot of history.
A lot of history.
Sports history.
Yeah.
I never knew much about Kentucky, but I'm realizing with the research that I did and speaking with you, it's got a rich culture and a lot of history.
It does. It absolutely does. We tend to keep to ourselves, but there's a lot of cool stuff once you start digging.
That makes sense. Huh. How would you say living in Kentucky, in Louisville, growing up here, how would you say it shaped who you are today?
That's a good question. So going back to the big city opportunity, small town feel, I think in most people that I know and who I would consider my inner circle, they have a drive and a work ethic and a creativity that exists in them. And then I would even argue a lot of them have entrepreneurship kind of built in them that usually comes with a big city, right, that has a ton of opportunities out there. The cool thing, though, is the small town feel, because it's great to have the work ethic, it's great to have the desires and the dreams, but if you do that at the expense of somebody else, that's the wrong way to go about doing it. The small town feel makes you, in my opinion, do it the right way, at least how I see it being right, which is relationships and taking people with you. And it's about the community, not you. If the community succeeds, everybody succeeds. So that's what's more important. And I think that's what it's instilled in me personally. And again, as I go to these different parts of the country and see things, nothing is right or wrong necessarily, but I think the way that we do it here is just a little different. It's more about the people than it is anything else.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's so representative of the state. So it's more about raising families, raising kids the right way, building that character,
That's right.
looking out for others, and ultimately the true definition of success, where it's not just monetary gain, it's uplifting others, fulfilling your purpose, not at the expense of others. And
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, we're very passionate, at least in our company, about teaching people to build wealth in real estate. And I think wealth sometimes has maybe a negative connotation, right? Oh, I don't want to make a ton of money because I might be seen as negative, and that's just not what we believe. We believe it's your job and your duty to create wealth so that you can give back to the community and to other people who need it. Because if you have the ability to create wealth, we would rather someone who's going to use it the right way create the wealth than someone who may not use it.
Absolutely.
For other people.
That's beautiful, and it's very true, because I lived in LA for a little bit, and of course visited other places, New York City, bigger cities, but in LA it almost seemed like it's a special place, but it almost seemed like the opposite, where people were just out for themselves and didn't care for uplifting others. So it's almost the opposite mentality. So it's interesting to hear you have the resources here, but everyone helps each other and does it the right way.
And I do think part of that, specifically with LA, that's Hollywood, that's a cutthroat business. So I think that has something to play in it, right? Like our top industries are like healthcare, manufacturing, and distribution. So everything is about helping sick people and helping other people get the goods and or services that they ordered. So everything is about serving here, right? Because we know, again, if I can help you achieve whatever you want, then when it comes time for me to need your help, you're going to want to do that too, and then again, everybody wins.
That's interesting how it's even on the level of industries, manufacturing, and it trickles through with the culture.
And I don't know if that was purposeful or not. I hope it is. But either way, I think the service industry here is doing really well because a little bit of that Southern hospitality and again, just the mindset of everything being so relational to a small town.
Wow, that makes sense. That's awesome. I like that. What would you say is, if you had to choose 3 words to represent your state, what would you say they are?
Oh my gosh, 3 words only. Okay, so I'll just do them individually, not like a sentence or a phrase. I do think the first would be bourbon. I think that's
coming
what
back
we're
to the
known for,
bourbon.
right? That bourbon is what we're known for.
Yeah.
I think basketball definitely has to be up there as well. And then the third one, I'm probably just going to say the city of Louisville
Okay.
for no other reason other than we know if you're from Kentucky based on how you say it, right? So like say Louisville.
I was just gonna ask you.
Yeah, say
I have
Louisville.
not been saying it like that. Louisville.
Yeah, so most people who are not local say Louisville or
Yes.
Louisville or something like that. And when you're a local, it's Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah, so what we tell people is say it like you got too much bourbon in your mouth, right? Louisville.
Louisville.
So that's how a local says Louisville. And for
Man.
that reason alone, I think that would have to be included in the top three.
I'm
Word
glad
for
you
the
said that.
state.
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Nobody does. And it's funny, I've got a shirt on, and whenever I go teach, I wear this shirt, and I give it out to some people, the different ways to say it.
I like it.
Because it is,
Louisville,
yep, it's all the different ways
Louisville.
that most people say it.
Louisville, Louisville. That's cool.
So
With the spelling.
it's all about saying it like a local. That's when you know that you're really ingrained in the city.
Nice, and I like the way you are prepared with that shirt too,
Yep.
and you covered it so I wouldn't see it.
Yeah, you gotta do it special, right?
Smart. Do you have any unusual local traditions or customs in the area or the state?
I think we're known for Derby, but I think what we're not known for is Derby here is a 2-week party. It begins the two Saturdays before Derby with something called Thunder over Louisville, and it's the largest fireworks show in the nation. That kicks off the 2 weeks of Derby, and it's just party after party after party with different smaller festivals. We have a balloon race, we have a boat race, we have all kinds of stuff happening in the city for those 2 weeks, all to celebrate a 2-minute horse race. So we lean so hard into that tradition, and it's become something that is just huge. Like, kids don't even go to school every day of the week, Derby week.
Well, the school system
The
actually
school
works
system,
around.
Yeah, so
Wow.
they're off on Fridays, which is Oaks Day, which is the day before Derby. So
Man.
it's really become almost like a movement, if you will, and that's got to be the most Louisville tradition that exists, right? We party for 2 weeks for a 2-minute horse race.
I was gonna say you all know how to party.
Bourbon, dude, I'm telling you.
But it all comes back to
It all
bourbon.
comes back to bourbon.
That's
So
fascinating.
yeah, so it's a 2-week party for a 2-minute horse race is what we always say.
That's funny. Would you say that actually gets me right into? I wanted to ask about any famous phrases or slang. I know you said a couple.
Mhm.
What would you say is like the most popular phrase or slang?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. So the first one again, I would go back to Louisville, saying it the right way, or the way a local says it. Where'd you go to high school? It's probably again number one. The first minute you meet someone, it's if they don't know you're not local or they have a suspicion you are local, it's where'd you go to high school? So that would probably be up there. Go Baby Go is a famous Derby saying. There used to be
okay.
commercials all the time for Go Baby Go. There's a new one now, which is at the moment escaping me, but I'm sure it'll come back to me. And then, of course, going back to basketball, you have the BBN, which is the Big Blue Nation for the University of Kentucky, and they are seen everywhere. If you know anything about college basketball, you know about the BBN, but that is rooted here in the state. Louisville has another one. It's L1C4. It's Louisville First Cards Forever. But really, BBN is on a whole nother level.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Huh. That's cool. And I was going to mention with how you ask what high school people are from. From Sarasota, Florida. And so back in the day, it used to be a tiny little city. Everywhere you went, you would see people that you knew.
Yep.
And now it's just blown up into this this big city where I don't recognize anyone anywhere I go now. It's rare if I run into someone. And but we used to say the same thing. We used to be like, "Oh, what high school did you go to?" Sarasota High, Riverview.
Yep.
There's always one of 3 or 4.
Yep.
And then you knew more about that person because then you knew if there was like a friend group, you knew someone.
That's exactly
how
it.
it connects. Everyone's like 1 or 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2. We always say that too. You're 1 or 2 degrees of separation from anybody in the city. And there are a few that, like, if you say, "Oh, I went to this high school," like, you might be starting off on the bad foot.
No.
Because there's some rivalries for sure that exist within the city. So if I went somewhere and you went to the rival, we might not be getting along that night. We need each
Man,
other.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. So I wanted to ask you about getting into food next. every area seems to have its own food that represents the state or the city. What is this area known for, food-wise?
Oh my gosh, that's such a tough question because there have been numerous times where we've been recognized as a very foodie town. We have a lot of different cultures that end up here. We have a large Cuban culture here. We have a large Indian culture here. We have a large, I think, just South American culture here. So there's so many different cultures that exist here, and it's created a really cool culinary scene where I don't know if there's one or two things that we're known for, but what we are known for is a wide variety.
Nice.
And admittedly, I don't have a sophisticated palate, so I haven't enjoyed all of the cultures. But at any time, I could go and get almost any type of food that exists, which is really, really cool, I think. So I'm an Italian person at heart. We have tons of small Italian places that in traditional Italian culture, you know, they don't make them these large restaurants. They keep them really small on purpose, and you have to make a reservation a couple weeks in advance.
Good.
So we have a lot of places like that locally. But if there was one type of food that Louisville specifically is known for, I would say it's called a hot brown.
Hot brown.
Hot brown, and
What is that?
it's basically a heart attack in food form.
Butter,
it's
cheese.
a sandwich with butter, cheese all over the place, and bacon, and they just throw, frankly, all of the things that, and it depends on where you go as far as how much is actually in it. But essentially, think about a sandwich, and it can be almost any sandwich: turkey, ham. Again, bacon is always on there, but then you cover it in cheese, and then you like cook it this special way. Again, it's not really for me because I'm not a huge fan of
Hot brown.
heart attacks, but it's something you got to try.
Not
right?
a fan of
I
heart
tried it
attacks.
when I was little, and it's
Huh.
definitely something that if you're not from here and you come visit for Derby, they always say you got to try a hot brown.
I want to try one on my way out.
There you go. You can
But-
stop almost anywhere and get them.
Really? A gas station or?
I wouldn't go to a gas station. if a gas station's offering a hot brown, you're probably in trouble.
It's probably a good rule
It's
of thumb.
probably not one you want to go for, but I would go to the Village Anchor. They have a pretty good one.
Okay.
So
And what kind of bread is it? Is it just any kind of bread?
I think it's just any kind of bread. Yeah.
Okay.
It depends. Again, there's always
brown.
been, because it became, I think, kind of the staple. There's been so many different recipes that have popped up over the years that
That's cool. I'm gonna research the history of that. And
it's something, I'll tell you.
I did not realize you had so many different foods from different cultures.
Mhm.
I thought, Southern, but more small town,
Mm-mm.
meat and potatoes or.
So you're here for a little bit. Drive down Bardstown Road, and specifically there's a restaurant called Ramsey's, and I believe it's Ramsey's Cafe of the World, and just they have Greek food, Mediterranean food, Thai food. Trying to think of a couple others. I mean, they have like almost 10 cultures on their menu alone.
That's impressive.
So Ramsey's Cafe of the World, if you're looking for a place to eat, and then if you just drive down Bardstown Road, it's a very large road here. You'll see restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, and
Nice.
almost all of them are going to be different cultures. It's
Thank
really
you.
cool.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
You actually already knew what I was gonna get into about the best restaurants and places to eat.
So that's definitely one that if
gonna
you're
check
looking
that out.
for eclectic food, that's a great one. Specifically
Okay.
on Sundays, they do a brunch, and
Nice.
really, really cool.
What about hidden gems? Are there any like particular, not necessarily either restaurants or just in general, like scenic views, anything that people don't
Oh,
really know about
there's-
unless you're local?
Yeah, there's tons. Hammerheads is a restaurant. They're known for like inventive culinary.
Oh, I love that.
They have
Creative.
inventive culinary dishes. Specifically, I know, and they have a bacon brownie. That is
Bacon
a
brownie.
dessert that
Interesting.
people absolutely love. They have duck tacos, elk burgers.
That's awesome.
I think at one point, I don't know if it's on the menu anymore. I think at one point they had shark.
Whoa.
So it was, which up here, like,
I was gonna
we
say.
don't have sharks, right?
Yeah.
Like, where you're from in Florida, like, or even LA, like, that might be a thing. Here, it's really not. So Hammerheads is known for kind of pushing the envelope and making really cool, inventive dishes.
That's the best.
So that's a really cool place locally. And then as far as bars go, there's one called Hell or High Water, and it's a prohibition style bar.
Oh,
Again, going back to bourbon, right? So you go in and it looks like you're in this little one-room library, and there's a woman standing there, and you have to make a reservation in advance, and they give you a passcode.
Oh, like a speakeasy.
Yes.
Ah.
And you have to say the passcode in order for her to unlock and pull the book to open the actual entrance down into the bar.
That's cool.
So it's a really cool. And then of course all of the cocktails are as if it was back during Prohibition. So they're older cocktails, which is really cool.
Giving me a lot of. I'm gonna actually go back through and like take notes on all
I'm
of
telling
this.
you, man, you can't do it all in one day. You absolutely can't.
I didn't know Kentucky and Louisville had so much to offer. It's so rich.
For the best kept secret in the States, man.
That's
Yeah.
I see why. Getting into activities or destinations. Is there hiking? Do people go hiking around here?
There's a couple hiking places. I wouldn't say it's something we thrive in. We're not
Okay.
going to compete with, like a Montana or somewhere like that that's beautiful. But we do have trails.
Okay.
If that's something you want to do. My brother likes to hike. So there are trails out there. Admittedly, I wouldn't know where to tell you to go. But I know we have them. So there's definitely some hiking. I know there's some canoeing, some kayaking opportunities.
Some activities then.
Some activities, yeah. We have the Red River Gorge, a few local lakes. So you can definitely have some fun that way. But I wouldn't say that's like what we're known for.
Okay, but then what about like must-sees? Are there any, aside from hiking, any specific attractions or
Must see.
like a giant almond? I can't remember what state that was.
We don't have a giant almond. If I was going to give one locally that hasn't been talked about, you have to go to the Louisville Slugger Factory and Museum.
Museum, okay.
You have to go to Churchill Downs for the Churchill Downs Museum and the Kentucky Derby Museum. So you got to
Definitely.
do those two. The Bourbon Trail we already talked about. What we haven't talked about is Waverly Place.
Waverly Place.
It's one of the most haunted places in all of
Oh.
America.
You're gonna get me into the next category now?
I'm telling you. So it's a really, really cool spot, and it's an attraction now. Back in the day, it was a massive hospital type place
Oh.
where it was only for tuberculosis when it was huge.
It's getting creepier and creepier.
So a lot of people, there's legends of tens of thousands of people who passed away, but a lot of historians refute that and say it wasn't that many. But then, so like now it's no longer open, and but you can pay money to go tour it, and you can even pay money to spend the night.
No, somebody wants to spend the night in there?
And there are rumors, and I know a lot of people who have spent the night. I've never actually spent the
Oh.
night. I've toured it once, but I've never actually spent the night. Everybody who spends the night hears and sees something. Everybody. Now, whether or not that's legend or whatever, I can't speak to, but there is one room in particular, room 502, which is actually funny because I'm just now piecing together, that's our area code. So in room 502, when it was operational, it was rumored that 2 nurses committed suicide in that room.
Oh, man.
So now that room is like the main place where, according to legend, that's where all of the portals and everything are open, where all these
Oh,
spirits
this story's
live.
getting like worse and worse and worse.
So, and they're, again, at this point it's hard to figure out legend from what's actually true, but it's been said that a lot of people who go visit room 502 jump off. Yeah. So it's widely considered, if you're into haunted or ghost stories at all, you've probably heard of Waverly Place.
Wow.
I think we're top 3 on almost every list for most haunted places in America.
Man, I do believe that world is fascinating, and
Mhm.
I don't understand it.
It absolutely
but
is. Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
One
but
day. Ooh.
it is something that people come and do all the time. And I know some people who do it every year.
Every year.
Yeah, some people will go spend the night every year on Halloween.
On Halloween, out
On
of all
Halloween,
days.
yep. So it's got its own legend.
Wow.
And so we have, again, one of the things that makes us so cool is we have all these different pieces that kind of come together and
Definitely.
make this really eclectic area, right? So we have this kind of legend of this ghost story. We have, the Major League Baseball history with the Slugger Museum. We have 150 years worth of Derby. We have the bourbon. So we have all of these different things that it's really cool.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know there was so much. This you sold me, and I want to literally spend an entire trip
You're
exploring
gonna have
Kentucky.
to, man. I'm telling you, can't do it all in a day or two.
I'm coming
It's
back
gotta
for
be,
sure.
It's got to be 5 to 6 days.
I'm definitely gonna be back. I was gonna ask, going into, since we just spoke about the paranormal, are there any weird, and my friends are gonna laugh at me when I ask this because I think Bigfoot's real,
Yeah.
but do you have any like paranormal, legends about creatures? Because I know like New Jersey has like the, what's it called, something devil or like Dogman, and then there's like Bigfoot on the West Coast,
Yep.
and Florida, the skunk ape.
Yeah, I don't think there's a creature that is, legend. I think our legend is more the Waverly.
Okay.
And then
It's creepy enough.
it is creepy enough. And then if there was a creature to watch out for, and these absolutely exist, it would be specifically in like the western part of the state, would be copperhead snakes.
Oh.
So again, that's not like legend or anything like that, but when you're down there, you really got to watch your step, because
Oh, wow.
that can really do some damage to you.
Real creature.
A real creature, that's right. So
All right. Is there a memorable festival or event? I know you spoke about a couple
Derby,
already.
yeah.
Okay,
the
Derby.
2-week Derby party is absolutely huge. But then we have the Louder Than Life music festival. There's usually a lot of very large artists, and it goes for days. And there's, 20 to 30 artists that'll come through the city for those 4 or 5 days. And then you have the Bourbon and Beyond Festival, which is, again, a bourbon and music festival. So we have a lot of different festivals that come through. And then there's one up in Madison, Indiana, which is right on the Kentucky-Indiana line, but they still celebrate this. It's called the Regatta, and it's a monstrous boat race that brings in a ton of visitors. And so that regatta race brings a ton of visitors to Madison, Indiana, as well as northern Kentucky as well.
Oh, okay.
So there's almost always something to do in the state.
Seems like it. You all know
when
how
you go
to-
from spring to fall.
So you have fall events, you have spring events, and then winter. Does everyone typically?
Winter, you stay in your house because we get a decent amount of snow, so you don't want to do anything crazy. So you'll stay inside and drink your hot toddies with your hot tea and bourbon.
Everything goes.
Everything is back to bourbon, man. That's how we do it here.
That's funny. Has anything, kind of jumping into history and culture, it's a little off topic, but anything historical happened here? Any battles? I know that a little further south, Tennessee, the Civil War, there's different battlefields. Anything like that in this area?
I'm sure there's some that I'm just not super familiar with. I'm not a super big Civil War history buff, but I do know, obviously, we talked about the Slugger, we talked about 150 years of Derby. I think what comes to mind the most when you say that, though, there was a piece of property that we sold, and it was down in Bardstown, Kentucky, and it was rumored, never confirmed, but rumored, and there's like a newspaper article that went with this, that Billy the Kid was in a shootout on the roof of this property. And if you look at some of the pictures in the newspaper, you can see like bullet holes and things like that, and it does look just like it, and we ended up selling the property. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then there is a lot of evidence and a lot of confirmed places where the Underground Railroad was a thing. So there are some properties on both the Kentucky side of the river and the Indiana side of the river where you can literally see like a hidden cellar. And again, some of these have been classified as historical sites because they have been confirmed to have been part of the Underground Railroad.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love the historical side. That's
There's a lot of them. And then it is also pretty cool. Ford has a very large impact on the city. They provide a ton of jobs, and there's a ton of Ford specific history here. So back in, I believe it was 1918, the first commercial Model T rolled off the assembly line here. Not the first Model T as a whole, that was Detroit, but the first commercial Model T rolled off the line here in Louisville.
to pave the way for the automobile industry.
That's exactly right. Yep. And to this day, I mean, just last year they announced another $750 million development for their newest truck. So they're still adding to the community and building up the community in the city.
So that's not on my list, but I wanted to ask,
Sure.
because you just intrigued my interest with this. What industries are big here? So automobile, even though it's not on the list, I want to hear this for sure.
Absolutely. So, and it's not even just that. It's, Ford also announced the largest development in an investment in our state's history. In 2022, they announced a $5.8 billion with a B electric vehicle battery plant. That's going about an hour south of us right now. So that's in Glendale, Kentucky, right outside of Elizabethtown. And that's going to be super exciting. That opens next year. That's going to provide a ton of jobs for the state.
Oh, yeah.
And it's honestly the first time since probably back in the Model T days where we're now on the forefront of innovation again, which is really exciting for us locals, right? Again, we got kind of comfortable and we were crushing what we were doing, but we weren't really attacking growth sectors. Now that's kind of changing a little bit with this electric vehicle push, and you've seen a couple other battery plants be announced since then that are trying to rival us. And come to find out, it's also the limestone.
Oh.
So a lot of what makes Kentucky, I didn't realize has benefits in all these different sectors.
A lot of resources.
Yeah, a lot of these different industries, which is really cool. So the automobile industry is huge, and it's doing nothing but exploding. Healthcare is huge. We have a ton of hospitals locally, traveling nurses. So specifically with investing, we provide and we teach our investors how to provide a lot of housing for traveling nurses.
Oh, smart. Yes, that's a huge
and traveling like young professionals. So we have Humana, Trilogy, Atria, large corporations who bring people in. They'll rent for 2 to 3 years, and then they'll move on to the next place. They're kind of transient, but they're building that resume for themselves. So that creates a really cool renter and owner base, which is why we're such a hotbed for investors in real estate specifically.
I see.
So, and then we already talked about the manufacturing and distribution. So definitely healthcare, manufacturing and distribution, and then the automobile industry are booming here because we have Ford, we have Toyota, we have almost every large corporation you can think of.
Sounds like the state is flourishing.
It absolutely is right now. We are growing at a really, really exciting level. Again, a level we haven't seen probably since the early 1900s.
That's exciting.
It is. It's extremely exciting.
I know different states have their different industries, but some unfortunately didn't adapt, and so they're struggling like down south. So it's a beautiful thing to hear that. That's amazing.
Again, the big thing I want to make sure of, and I think the city wants to make sure of as well, is to keep that small town feel. Because like you said, in Sarasota, it used to be, where'd you go to high school? Now it's not really that anymore. And I think if that question goes away, that's okay. But keeping that small town feel where it's relational and about the people, as long as that stays at the forefront, I think we'll thrive.
That's special.
Yeah, it is.
Huh. So then shifting gears a little bit, this is more of a fun question. If you had to imagine your state as a person, what would you describe the personality?
Oh my gosh. This one, admittedly, when I was prepping, I really struggled with it. Because again, I think it can go so many different ways, right? So if I had to give it one word, I would say eclectic.
Okay.
Because you just have so many different cultures and so many different focuses, I guess, that depending on where you are in the city could show up at any given time. We just hosted the PGA Tour, which we haven't even talked about, right? We hosted the US Open, or not the US Open, the literal PGA Championship. So you have all these different cool things that happen in our city. So I don't think you could boil it down to one word.
It's hard to put your finger on one thing.
Yeah, I think eclectic would have to be the word, because we are kind of a melting pot and a hodgepodge of just a lot of really cool aspects that go into making the city what it is.
Would you say, that actually reminds me, misconceptions, if someone had a misconception about the state, I know from myself, I was thinking, country, Midwest, I didn't know all of this. So would you say that's the biggest misconception, that people don't realize how eclectic it is?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes because we're not always on the cutting edge or the forefront of innovation, because we've just been very conservative for so many years, in our job growth and things like that, we've always grown, but not like super exciting like some other places. So I'll never forget, I was talking to a gentleman who found my number online and called me, and he was from California. And he was like, hey, I'm looking to potentially invest in your city. Can you tell me more about it? And then he shared with me after we were talking for a little bit, he was like, I knew none of this, very similar to you. He goes, I literally thought you guys just wore overalls and no shoes all day.
That's messed up.
And I was like, well, I appreciate your honesty. And I'm sure there are parts of the state where that might be the case, but that's not how we do things here in Louisville.
That's funny.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think there's a misconception that we're a little bit more rural than we actually are. Now, there are rural parts of the state for sure, but definitely the Louisville area is more urban. But horse racing is huge as well. So depending on where you go, like if you just go a hop, skip, and a jump over to Shelby County, for instance, you're going to see a ton of horse farms, a ton of farmland in general. So maybe that's where it comes from. Not really sure.
Maybe.
But that is the misconception, is that, we're in overalls and barefoot all the time. And
maybe it's because, as you said, you all keep to yourselves.
Yep.
So people just come up with their own assumptions.
Oh, they absolutely.
Because I know
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure they do. We just, stay here, but like you said, keep to ourselves and party.
Yeah, you all know how to party.
do
it
the,
sounds
do the
like.
derby party. Yep.
Man, well, I just have 2 or 3 more questions.
Sure.
If you had, this is another fun one. If you had to, if your state had its own soundtrack, what song, either song or songs would be on it? Like, would you say country is a big, country music is big, or I know that it's an eclectic state now.
It is.
So maybe it's a mix of music.
It would have to be a mix.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest artist at the moment, Jack Harlow, we were kind of talking right before we turned the videos on. Jack Harlow is from here, and he has given a lot back to the city, and he's absolutely huge right now. He's, I think, the number 2 rapper in the country right now for sales. So he is absolutely crushing it, and we're super proud of him.
I didn't know he was from here.
Yeah, he's literally from Louisville. Like, we know the high school he went to, right? His mom owns a business not too far from us. So rap is quickly becoming something that the city is really wrapping its arms around, right? No pun intended.
Embracing that.
And then you do have a large country base as well. I don't know if I can have one song. I would almost just say it would be like a collaboration, or like a really mega mix, if you will, of like hip hop, rap, country, and then even a little bluegrass. I mean, you can't have something named bluegrass after the bluegrass state and not have that be on the soundtrack, right?
All right.
So it does kind of go back to the eclectic feel that exists here, and I think that's why it's so cool.
That seems representative of what you were saying. I've got 2 more questions. Then I was asking more about the real estate investing as a final note, and then referring people to reach out to you. But if you could change one thing about your state, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question. and it's funny, before I started touring, that might be the wrong word, before I started traveling and speaking and teaching as much in real estate investing and seeing the different areas of the city, I think I would have had a different answer. But traveling has really given me a newfound appreciation for the area. So I don't have an immediate answer, but if I had to come up with one, it would probably just be that we could grow and have an impact on other parts of the city that I know at the moment seem a little more divided.
Okay.
We've had our spats. We've been in the news for not stellar things before, but at the end of the day, I think where Louisville is awesome is we're one community, and I would hope nobody feels left out. Nobody feels like it's an us against them. That unfortunately I think is showing itself in different parts of the country. And so if there was one thing that I wish, it would be that we could take what makes our city so cool, where we don't just accept everybody, but we celebrate everybody and what makes them unique. And I think if we could just grow that outward and really have an impact on the rest of the country that way, that would be really cool.
That's beautiful. Honestly, that's if the rest of the country had the same mentality, think of how united the U.S. would be.
We might be the United States again, right? So I think that would be cool.
That's beautiful. It sounds like you've got a lot going on here for sure.
We do.
Last question is kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, where, and it's kind of funny to ask after such a serious question, but if you could create a state-themed cocktail or dish, so keeping in mind eclectic, what would it be? I'm assuming it'd be something very creative.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I don't even know. I mean, think of a Long Island iced tea, but with bourbon.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Right, that's what comes to mind.
Right.
I mean, and truthfully, we kind of have one, right? With the Derby, there's the mint julep, and then there's the Oaks Lily. So those 2 drinks are kind of the cocktails we're known for. So, but if I had to make a new one, it would be some kind of Long Island iced tea mixture with everything in there, but instead of like 4 or 5 different liquors, it's 4 or 5 different bourbons.
You just gave me an idea. One day I want to come back and visit. We got to try making that.
We will absolutely try making that. I've got 4 different bourbon types I can give you right now, and it's funny. There's a bourbon that does this, and my wife and I bought it for our wedding, and we busted out and we each take a drink on our anniversary. It's a bourbon called Blood Oath, and it's a really weird name, but the history behind it's cool. What they do is the people who distill this bourbon try the different bourbons that came out that year, because every bourbon is different. Just like California wine, it depends on a variety of different things, right? Specifically the climate that year.
Oh.
So every bourbon that is aged for 7 years may not taste the same depending on, what those 7 years look like. So this Blood Oath distillery will go around and pick the top 10 or 20 bourbons, and they mix them all together.
Oh, wow.
And then that is their bottle, is this mixture of this top 10 to 20. And it's not cheap, but it's a really cool bottle. So like I said, when my wife and I got married, we bought the bottle of that year, which was 2018. And now every year on our anniversary, we each take a drink of it to
really
remember the
cool.
year that we got married.
That's a cool tradition,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that they did that. It's almost like a blended red wine.
That's exactly right.
More
But
more
it's all
flavors, more complexity.
And it's intense, man. I
Oh,
will tell you, it's very
imagine.
packed with flavor.
I want to try one of those.
You got to.
Wow. Huh.
They're hard to find, but when you find it, you gotta buy it and you gotta dive in.
I will, for sure. Well, tell me a little more as a final note. I know you do real estate investing. You teach others about real estate investing. If you wanted to share anything with the viewers about how to contact you, or more details on what you want them to know, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, our mission is to empower people to create the life they want through real estate. Meaning, real estate's an incredible investment vehicle. There's no such thing as a get-rich-quick scheme, right? If anything gets you rich quick, it's going to potentially get you poor just as quick, right? So real estate is the safest bet when it comes to building wealth. There's a reason that the top millionaires and billionaires hold such a large percentage of their portfolio in real estate. So we want to bring that to the everyday people, right? So we talk to a lot of people about this because, again, at the end of the day, we want the people who are going to give back to be able to create the most wealth.
I like that.
So as long as you have, you're the right kind of investor, we would love to have a conversation. So, just get a hold of us. You can find us on our website, WSGHomesandProperties.com. Feel free to email me, Drew, DREW, at WSGHomesandProperties.com. We're always just trying to educate. So whether that's coming out, hopping on a Zoom, meeting you in person, wherever you are, there's logistics behind that, but we just want to meet you where you are, tell you our story, and then see if it's something that you want to try to do or not.
Nice. Well, I know I'm gonna reach out in the near future when I'm ready.
Absolutely.
And I know I have a couple of friends of mine as well who
Awesome.
I'll refer you to. But I'll make sure I put at the bottom of this the links and everything. Thank you for today.
Absolutely, man.
Seriously, this was such amazing information. I'm gonna take notes, and I'm going to go through and I want to experience the state the way that I need to. So I really appreciate it.
Again, make sure you block out 4 to 5 days. You can't do it in just 1 or 2.
I will. And Drew is the first one on this podcast, so I'm really grateful for that. Seriously, for taking.
You got to let me know how everybody else stacks up.
It's gonna be tough. You set the bar high.
Keep me updated. Yeah.
Seriously, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, pleasure.
Thank you very much. Man, that's awesome.